Opportunity for us. I'd like to call the meeting of the Arizona State Parks Board to order on Thursday, June 17th, 2021, beginning at various times around the country. Technically, I guess it's at 10 a.m. I'm at 12 noon. I think, Don, you're at what, 1?
1 o'clock over here, yep.
Okay. And Terry, what time is it where you are?
10 o'clock Wisconsin as you are, Dale.
Oh, okay. Gosh, we should have met up. All right. Anyway, call this meeting to order. Let's have in fact, if you don't mind, Jeff, you're there. Before I do the roll call, would you mind, Jeff, since you're there with all of our fabulous staff members, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
Of the
America
United States of
and
America.
to the republic
To
for
the
which it
republic,
stands, one
yes,
nation, under
a
God,
nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty
indivisible,
and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
I always want to say,
Thank you,
too,
board
I go
member.
back to my Scout days, you know.
Thank you, Board Member Buchanan. Appreciate that. All right, let's have a roll call for the board, please.
Dale Larson,
Here.
John Sefton,
Here.
Lisa Atkins, Jeff Buchanan,
Here.
Debbie Johnson,
Here.
Terry Palmer.
Here.
Hi, Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
All right, very good. Thank you all. As I said earlier, this will be a little bit of a challenge. We often don't have the majority of the board telephonically trying to call in. Thank you very much, staff, for making all of this technological connections happen so effectively. Noting that there is the telephonic and there may be some delay, we'll have to be just cautious and careful as people enter into to ask their information and do questions. Usually at the beginning of each meeting, I like to share the mission statement for the Arizona State Parks Board. As board members, we are gathered today to be the stewards of the Arizona State Parks and its mission statement to manage and conserve Arizona's natural, cultural, and recreation resources for the benefit of the people, both in our parks and through our partners. And I think that's particularly important, that last statement, because we have several partners on the call-in today related to the various grants. So again, to all of you, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. At this time, I'd like to go to agenda item D1, consideration of action to approve the minutes of our previous May 2021 board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, Terry Palmer, I move to approve the meeting minutes for May 20, 2021.
Thank you, Terry. Is there a second?
And Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, I'll second.
Thank you very much, Board Member Jeff Buchanan. Motion is on the floor and seconded. Are there any questions or concerns? Hearing none, by acclamation, all those in favor of approving the minutes do so by saying aye.
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 The motion is passed. Item D2, and we have several of these items with a lot of people on the call as well, and I appreciate Nikki taking the time to kind of give me a heads up of who might be on the call if there are any questions regarding these grants. So,
You say go. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The Recreational Trails Program provides grant funding for constructing and maintaining non-motorized and motorized trails and trailhead facilities. Each fiscal year, a minimum of 30% of appropriated funds can be used for non-motorized projects. In this cycle, 2 projects were submitted, totaling funding requests of $220,058. And before I forget, Mr. Chair and members of the board, if the board approves all the projects that we submitted today, it'll fully obligate the FY21 RTP funding. So the first project, Verde Valley Archaeological Center, is home to 40,000 artifacts excavated locally in the Verde Valley. Located in Camp Verde, the center contains a prehistoric pit house village and also has several other archaeological significant artifacts. This provides educational opportunities to the public on this trail that they're proposing to construct. They're seeking $150,000 to construct a 0.4 of a mile fully ADA compliant path and also construct an ADA restroom. This will provide access to these areas that include interpretive panels of the history. The sponsors partner with Camp Verde on this project. Staff, ASCOT, and AORC recommend to fully fund the project. The project is shovel-ready, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and Ken is also on the phone if you have any questions. Hearing none, I'll go to the second project. The Pioneer Museum is located in Flagstaff and is managed by the Arizona Historical Society, providing history of ranching, logging, transportation, and life as a pioneer. They have several outdoor exhibits that are not easily accessible. The sponsor is seeking $70,058 to construct an ADA trail to these exhibits using an AmeriCorps crew, and also to install 17 interpretive trails along the trail. The museum has stated that they have funds to maintain these trails once the trail is built. That was one of the questions that was asked by one of the members. With extensive work on these trails, stands for panels, rest and platform, culverts, the environmental group at ADOT will request more information and more likely request a survey of the area. Staff, ASCOT, and AORC recommend to fully fund these projects, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on this, and I believe Jennifer is also on the phone.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm back on. I lost everybody for some reason.
Okay, well, this is Terry Palmer in support of ASCOT and AORC's recommendation. I move to approve funding for the submitted 2021 non-motorized grant applications as follows. Verde Valley Archaeological Center Native American Heritage Trail improvements in the amount of $150,000, and the Arizona Historical Society Pioneer Museum ADA Trail in the amount of $70,058.
Again, I apologize. I'm sorry for that. Thank you. Who asked for the motion? John, did you take over?
There was
I
two.
did.
Actually, Terry just made the motion.
Okay, very good. Sorry. Yeah, I'm believe it or not, I'm in the basement of the library in Williams Bay, Wisconsin. I'm not sure how the internet or the cell phone connection is doing, so I apologize for that. So there's a motion and a second on the floor. Are there any questions?
Did we have a second?
Actually, we did not make a second, but John Sefton will second that motion.
All right, thank you, John. I just caught it at the end. And so there's been a motion and a second. Any questions? I would like to thank, I think Ken Zoll from Native American Heritage is here, and Jennifer Hunt from the Arizona Historical Society is also called in. So thank you both very much for participating. Let's have a roll call vote on this is a fiscal item for the approval of the two items on the grant application. Roll call vote.
Dale Larson.
Yes, aye.
John Sefton. John Sefton.
Yes.
Lisa Atkins.
Yeah.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Terry Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you very much, and welcome Board Member Lisa Atkins. I'm sorry I You came on when I was having some telephone difficulties, so thank you for engaging with the meeting. All right, item number 3, discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the submitted 2021 Recreational Trails Program, Safety and Environmental Education, Sea Grant. Mickey, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The RTP program also provides funds for safety and education as they relate to trails. A total of $95,776 can be used for safety and education projects. In this cycle, 2 projects were submitted for a total funding request of $10,683. The first project, Tucson Audubon's Cuckoo Corridor project, is located in Patagonia at the Tucson Audubon's Payson Center for Hummingbirds. The existing 6.3-mile continuous walking trail has nature viewing with 30 interpretive stations with QR codes linking to audio files providing interpretation in multiple languages. The Cuckoo Corridor is a quarter-mile connector trail between the center and the elementary school. Tucson Audubon is seeking $3,185 for 2 interpretive panels to introduce the users to this trail and to develop a pamphlet for this trail. Ascot, staff, AORC recommended that this be fully funded, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you very much, Mickey. Are there any questions from board members? Hearing none, and I understand Bill Scott is here from the Legends of Superior Trails, according to Mickey. So thank you, Bill, for joining us. There are no questions. Is there a motion to approve the Recreational Trails Program Safety and Education Grant application?
Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I could do the second project. We can do both at once if you prefer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the second project, the Legends of Superior Trails, better known as LOST, is a 1,165-mile-long hiking, biking, and equestrian trail through Superior to the Sonoran Desert, 60 miles to the east. A nonprofit was formed to assist with the continued maintenance of this trails with volunteers. LOST is seeking $7,498 to purchase a trailer and tools to be used by volunteers for this trail maintenance. They also requesting funds to get 2 days of training from a professional trail crew on proper trail maintenance and construction of trails. Staff, Ascot, and AORC recommend to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this project.
Thank you, Mickey. I got ahead of myself, and thank you again to Bill Scott, who I believe is on the phone. Any questions on the 2 grant applications? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, I move that the Arizona Outdoor Recreation Coordinating Commission recommend that Arizona State Parks Board approve funding for 2021 safety and environmental education applications as follows. Tucson Audubon Society Cuckoo Corridor Trail signage in the amount of $3,185, and Legends of Superior Trails Lost Trailer Tools and Training in the amount of $10,683.
Thank you, Board Member Buchanan. Is there a second to Jeff's motion?
John Sefton will second that motion.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Sefton. Are there any questions? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
John Sefton,
Yes.
Lisa Atkins,
Yes.
Jeff Buchanan,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson,
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you very much. Let's go to item number 4, discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the submitted 2021 Land and Water Conservation Fund Grant application. Mickey, this is a big item. Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The Land and Water Conservation Fund provides matching grants for acquisition and development of public outdoor recreation facilities. All LWCF funding requests require a minimum 50-50 match. Arizona State Parks opened a competitive cycle in October of 2020, and to date, there have been 9 projects approved. Since the last board meeting, Six more projects have been submitted. The first project is the City of Wilcox seeking $2,165,041 for improvements to two parks, Keeler Park and Quail Drive Sports Complex. Both are current LWCF funded projects. At Keeler Park, Wilcox is proposing to replace the playground, upgrade lighting at fields to LED, upgrade restrooms, add 2 ADA restrooms, replace sprinkler system, add drinking fountains and trash cans, replace ball field fencing, reseed the fields, build a splash pad, and rebuild a swimming pool, adding workout equipment along the pathway. At Quail Park, they're requesting to convert 2 ball fields to multi-use fields, upgrade lighting to LED, add goalposts, and upgrade the restrooms. They're also requesting that they add picnic tables and bleachers at this project. They were also, at Quail Park, they're requesting a shade structure, a covered area for a rodeo grounds at this facility. An LWCF project can request funding for 2 different areas, but when I met with the sponsor, I told them that if there are any issues with either park during review by the National Park Service, it will hold up the entire work. There was also some question of how much the covered area is, covered arena is eligible for LWCF, since it also included a kitchen and a meeting room, which aren't eligible for LWCF funding. But once we submit this to NPS, they'll determine how much of the facility is eligible for funding. Due to it's a very well-written grant, the loan is in place, the other matching is in place, and because of limited LWCF funds with pending project and anticipated LWCF scope changes, staff and AORC recommended funding this project at $1,500,000. And Wilcox will certainly work with Wilcox and both Buckeye, both projects that were recommended to reduce funding if more funding becomes available to complete their project. Staff and AORC recommend to fund at $1,500,000, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have in this project.
So, Mr. Chair, Jeff,
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'm sorry, Jeff Buchanan with a question for Mickey, and that is, what are they going to be able to do, or what are they not going to be able to do? Is this, are they going to start construction and have to stop with the reduced amount of the grant? I guess I'm just trying to understand what good are we going to get for this investment?
They'll be able to do, remember Buchanan, they're going to be doing significant improvements to the area, and I'll work with them and come back to you and tell you exactly what they'll withdraw at this time and look for funding for future phases.
Okay, does that satisfy your question, Jeff?
It's close enough. I just want to make sure that whatever we spend money on isn't going to, lead to a halfway completed project that now sits and is, an eyesore and everything else. So if they can compartmentalize it so that they spend money on things that are actually completed, that's really what I'm after.
Yes, ma'am. We'll work with them to make sure the items are completed with funding.
All right, thank you. Other questions? I know, Mickey, there's now the representative from the City of Wilcox at the meeting, correct?
They didn't respond. I'm not sure if Caleb, are you on the phone?
Okay, I guess I'm kind of a follow-up to Board Member Buchanan's question. Do they understand the rationale of why their full request is not being funded at this time?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, they were here, they were present at the AORC meeting. We talked extensively on the funding and what they can and can't do.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is Mayor Laws of Wilcox.
Oh, hi, Mayor. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were on the phone. Thank you very much.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to tell everybody that we are going to utilize the money, and everything will be funded that if you approve. And we do have a project that we can lay back on that will not affect this at all. We will fund it in full.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you very much, Mayor. Appreciate your engagement on this project.
Yes, sir.
we
We
don't have a lot of mayors that-
appreciate everyone here.
We don't get a lot of mayors that come into our meetings, so the fact that you're here is really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Nikki, you want to go to the next one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The second project is with Yuma County. They're seeking $584,433 to develop a new park next to the Foothills Library. Funding will be used to develop an 8-acre parcel in phases. The LDIPCF funding in this phase will include grading the area, irrigation, a walking path, a ramada, tables, benches, trash receptacles, water line connecting to the area, parking areas, and a playground. It's a much-needed recreation area as there are no public parks within a 15-mile radius of this proposed park. Staff, AORC, recommend to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this, and I believe Diana is also on the phone to answer questions.
All right, thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Diana, for being on the call. Are there any questions from board members regarding Yuma County's project in Foothills Park? Hearing none, is there a, no, I'm sorry, we'll continue on. Nikki, do you want to go to Sierra Vista now?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Sierra Vista is seeking $1,500,000 for funding for Veterans Memorial Park. This also is a current LWCF funded project and is the largest city park in Sierra Vista. The grant will request funds to upgrade the water storage tank and irrigation system, put in artificial turf on an existing football field, and possibly put in a sand base at one of the softball fields if funds are available after bids are received. This park was identified as the most utilized park in Sierra Vista. Staff did question the high cost of the storage tank and the upgrades to the well system, but they have concrete costs that show that this cost is concrete. Staff and AORC recommend to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and I believe Bryce is also on the phone.
All right, thank you very much, Mickey, and to Bryce and Irene for being on the phone. Any questions from board members regarding Veterans Memorial Park and Sports Complex? Hearing none. Mickey, do you want to continue with Apache Junction?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, the City of Apache Junction is seeking $521,161 to make improvements to Superstition Shadows Park. This 23-acre park will use the funds to improve the existing tennis and pickleball courts, reseal a parking area, make improvements to the existing ADA walkway, put in a circuit fitness equipment along the trail, with fencing, restroom, and possible upgrades to the lighting. The tennis courts will be shared with the high school and junior high. And the pickleball players have been very vocal about the need for safe and playable courts, and are fully supportive of this project. The project is shovel-ready, all the matches in place, and the staff and AORC recommend to fully fund this project. And I believe Liz is also on the phone to provide more information if you need it.
All right. Thank you, Mickey. Any questions regarding Apache Junction's proposal? Very good. And Liz, thank you for being on the call. Mickey, do you want to go down to Couchner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Karshner Cavern State Park seeking $404,951 for park improvements at Karshner. Arizona State Parks anticipates an appropriation for replacing the roof at the visitor center. The parks will use LWCF funds to match this appropriation to make improvements to the HVAC system at the visitor center and maintenance building. They will also make improvements to the bridge to the cave and ADA upgrades to the facility, parking areas, and trails. This is one of our most heavily used parks, and the improvements will make the visitor experience much more enjoyable. Staff and AORC recommend to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this one.
Yeah, it's very heavily used. And I know one of our former board members, Lewis, was always a proponent of making sure that the the sensitive elements of Karchner are taken care of. Any questions regarding the cavern?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan with the question.
Please.
I probably just need an education, but all the rest of these are non-state parks organizations. So I'm trying to understand what makes this unique project use this mechanism for funding. I'm not sure that I understand that, because this is a state park unlike the rest of these in this particular category.
Mr. Chair, Member Buchanan, LWCF funding is available for nonprofits and state agencies. Throughout the nation, a lot of our state parks have been funded with LWCF matching funds that the state has. So it's a mechanism to match funds available to make improvements in our park, and it's certainly used by many other states for state park projects.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Jeff, too, because the state parks traditionally throughout the country become the administrative arm for the LWCF funds as they come through the National Park Service, but that certainly does not disqualify them or make them ineligible for submitting their own projects, but they go through the same process that all the various communities and nonprofits would be, and of course AORC would review it in the same sense. So very good question, though, for people to understand that state agencies are also eligible for these funds. Let's go on then to Nogales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Nogales is seeking funds to improvements to Taikia Park, which is a city park renovation project. This is a current public park located in central Nogales behind the city offices. This will be a phased project. The first phase that LWCF funding is seeking will be upgrading the existing facility. The work would include an ADA playground, improved basketball court, improved walking paths, lighting, ramadas, improved bathroom facilities, and picnic areas. The park has not been upgraded since 1978, and all the matches in place. The city also hopes to approach state parks for phase 2 in a future funding cycle to put in an amphitheater at a different location of the park. Staff and AORC recommend to fully fund this project. I believe David is also on the phone if you have questions.
Thank you, Mickey, and thank you, David, for being on the call. Are there any questions regarding the City of Nogales' proposal? Hearing none. Before I call for a motion, Mickey and your staff, I mean, this is nearly $6 million of Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. No small undertaking. And congratulations and commendation to you, staff, and AORC for getting this money out the door. This is what municipalities have wanted to do. Now that there's permanent funding for it, you're doing exactly what the federal legislation wants you to do with this. So just as a preface before I ask for a motion, good work for all of you that have been involved with this, with the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. And again, Mayor, thank you for taking the time to come and visit with us there in Phoenix, as well as the other visitors. Saying that, is there a motion to approve item B4 on the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan with a motion to approve funding for the 2021 LWCF applications as follows. The City of Wilcox in the amount of $1,500,000. Yuma County in the amount of $584,433. The City of Sierra Vista in the amount of $1,500,000. The City of Apache Junction in the amount of $521,161. Karchner Cavern State Park in the amount of $404,951. And the City of Nogales in the amount of $809,907.
Thank you, Board Member Buchanan. Is there a second to the motion?
John Sefton will second the motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair Sefton. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments before we go to a roll call vote? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Dale Larson,
Yes.
John Sefton,
Yes.
Lisa Atkins,
Yes.
Jeff Buchanan,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson,
Yes.
Terry Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you very much, board members, and thank you for presenters for being on this line for that item. Item number 5, discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding on the amendment to the budget for Arizona State Park's Red Rock Water Tower and Maintenance Building Land and Water Conservation Fund project. Mickey Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. In fiscal year 2021, the Arizona Parks Board awarded Red Rock State Park $343,600 in LWCF funding to replace the water tank, pumps, and maintenance building at the park. Arizona State Parks is anticipating to receive an appropriation for the maintenance building, which is part of this project. We are requesting $9,650 in additional LWCF funding to leverage this appropriation as matched to complete the amphitheater and ADA pathway to the amphitheater that are at the park. This additional funding will allow the park to complete these projects, which have been incomplete for the past 2.5 years. The amphitheater will be available for presentation and education opportunities at the park. Staff and AERC recommend to fully fund this amendment, to recommend this amendment, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mickey. Any questions from board members on the Red Rock amendment to increase it?
Mr. Chair, Jeff,
Mr. Chair, Terry,
go ahead, Terry.
Terry Palmer.
Go ahead, Terry.
What is causing this increased cost? Could you just give us a brief overview, please?
Mr. Chair, Member Palmberg, so the original grant did include the amphitheater or the pathway, so this increased cost is to help complete those projects that have already started.
Thank you.
All right. Board Member Buchanan, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. Well, it's really a comment. And having watched some costs of construction materials over the last 6 months, I think we're going to see a lot of this. I don't know how long it's going to last, but prices, frankly, are skyrocketing for concrete, steel, wood, just about everything. So I encourage patience.
No, that's an excellent comment, Jeff. The cost on this construction and also the labor available to do the work too, but very, very good, accurate comment with the economy right now. So thank you. All right, any other comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the Red Rock amendment?
Mr. Chair, Terry Palmer, I would move that we approve an amendment to increase the LWCF award for the approved Red Rock State Park Land and Water Conservation Fund, the Water Tower / Maintenance Building Project, from $343,600 to the new award of $353,250.
Thank you, Board Member Palmer. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Thank you, Jeff. Any questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, a roll call vote.
Dale Larson,
Yes.
John Sefton,
Yes.
Lisa Atkins,
Yes.
Jeff Buchanan,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson,
Yes.
Terry Palmer.
Thank you very much. Passed unanimously. All right. Item number 6.
I don't think my name, oh, never mind.
No,
Oh, I'm
My
sorry.
name
I'm
wasn't
sorry.
called Dale, but I made the motion, so I don't know.
no, go ahead.
No, you're right.
Member
It-
Palmer,
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, the motion passed.
Okay, Sherry. Oh well, I can't wait till August. Let me put it that way. So, Let's go to item number 6, discussion and consideration of, or action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the 2021 motorized grant application. And I believe that we have Matt Eberhardt on hand to do this item.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Matt Eberhardt. I'm the State Off-Highway Vehicle Coordinator with Arizona State Parks and Trails. Currently, we have $2 million available in funding for off-highway vehicle-related grant applications. For this project, the town of Camp Verde is requesting $220,600 for the Grief Hill Trailhead project. Funding will provide improvements to an existing trailhead, access to motorized and non-motorized recreation opportunities, double vault toilets, 4 picnic ramadas with tables and grills. Everything will be ADA accessible. There will be new kiosks and interpretive panels, safety and information panels as well, and both kiosks and all signage will have QR codes for easier access for users. The trailhead will be open year-round and will provide an OHV trailhead alternative to the Hayfield Draw, which is currently closed during the summer months. This project is part of the Prescott National Forest's Verde Trails and Access Plan. The project is fully supported by the Prescott National Forest, who will help in monitor and maintaining the site. It should be noted that AORC did have questions regarding the town of Camp Verde requesting funding for a project that will be on U.S. Forest Service property. And Jessica Bryson with the town of Camp Verde confirmed that there is a standing MOU between the U.S. Forest Service and the town of Camp Verde regarding this project and its maintenance, and they're in full support. This project has all of its documentation in place. It's shovel ready and was fully recommended for full funding from staff, OFAG, and AORC. And Jessica Bryson is on the phone, and we're both able to answer any questions related to the project.
All right. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Jessica, for being on the phone. Board members, questions or comments?
Matt, this is Lisa. Matt, I'm getting feedback on my phone. So could you repeat the part that you stated about the forest?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Member Larson, or Lisa Adkins, sorry. The U.S. Forest Service and the town of Camp Verde have a standing agreement, so the Forest Service would not be able to apply for this for some time. So they established an MOU with the town of Camp Verde so that the town of Camp Verde could request the funds and do the work on U.S. Forest Service property. And then the Forest Service and the town will work together to maintain the trailhead once it's completed.
So does that also imply that the Forest Service will be reimbursing the town for some expenses?
I would defer that to Jessica.
The reason I'm asking, and this goes back, yes, go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, no, by all means, board member, go ahead.
The reason I'm asking this question is, while I think we're all very happy to see the massive increase in land and water conservation funds, we also have watched federal agencies on a regular basis because they lack the financial support from their home agencies to be able to support their work. I just want to keep an eye on how much money the state, whether it's through land and water conservation, which are federal dollars, ironically, and whatever else is being put into all of these projects, that we don't end up in a backdoor way funding things that the federal government ought to be funding for their own national forest and BLM land projects. Because it appears to me that at some point we're going to get very comfortable with all this and the money's going to disappear. And then I worry about the state being responsible for funding things that really are a federal responsibility. I am going to support this. I'm not saying that I'm not going to, but I just worry about that relationship where we're using revenues generated at the state level on federal projects because there's a lack of federal funding. and where the benefit comes to the state in the long run for doing that, particularly our users. Because when we don't have the money, the feds don't come in with dollars to back us up. So at some point, as we all know, these cycles are cyclical, things are going to shift. And we built an expectation, and we're taking care of resources in a very prudent manner. And then when we don't have the resources to do that, it's the public that wonders why we're not taking care of these assets. Just an editorial comment. Like I said, Mr. Chairman, I have every intention of voting in favor of this.
Thank you, Board Member Lisa Atkins. And actually, your points are well taken. We've seen history and cycles with this. Jessica Bryson, you're on the phone. Do you have anything to add or to help clarify the board members' concern about the relationship of Camp Verde along with the Forest Service for this?
Board Member Atkins, I can completely understand your concerns there. Just please just understand from our perspective, outdoor recreation is a very, very important concept for us out of our office. I work in economic development, and it's part of our creative placemaking. It's the desire for this trail system is such a passion for our residents and our visitors, and it's really a need in this area. It's with the overcrowding of Sedona, we need other outlets at this point to alleviate some of the pressure that Sedona is facing. So we're trying to increase that quality of life for our residents and visitors here in Camp Verde. And we're trying to do that in a partnership with the Forest Service. So they have been wonderful, absolutely wonderful to work with. This is in every, trails and outdoor recreation, particularly at the Grief Hill Trailhead. It's in every planning document that our town has had. Dating all the way back to 1998 in our general plans. It's been in every single general plan, and we're finally being able to do it ourselves. So I can completely appreciate your concern for that. We're in this for the long haul as well, as far as maintenance and to support the Forest Service, and because it's a mutually beneficial project. So while the intent is for us to help do the heavy lift of the grant writing and management, and then the installation of the trailhead or the recondition of the trailhead, we are here to support the Forest Service to make sure that it doesn't fall into disrepair and that the state funds and taxpayer dollars are used appropriately, and we're being good stewards of their money. So I just wanted to help clarify that as well, and we're going to do everything that we can on our part. We really appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
Jessica, this is Lisa. I want you and I have not had a chance to meet. I have spent decades up and around your area, and I know it quite well. And I truly appreciate the fact that your community is stepping up to the plate to do this, because you understand not only what your residents want, but the attraction that brings other support. Every one of those tourist or visitor dollars helps the city be a healthy city and grow and meet the needs that are outside of your tax base. My concern is, and trust me, as a state land commissioner, I get everything you just said. I too am in a position where we would like to maintain the use of trust land, which is not public land, but which nonetheless is used as public land, and recognize that it's difficult to find a revenue stream. And I just worry about all of us in Arizona getting very hooked on this huge influx of dollars to land and water conservation. And if it isn't sustainable, are we going to be able to sustain our support for the recreation demands in the state without assessing or reassessing where those dollars are coming from? At some point, we're not going to be able to support federal lands in addition to taking care of our own communities. And that's the only thing that I just wanted to point out, is we need to be careful about how dependent we get on a federal revenue source, and also in our interaction. I mean, the intermingled land pattern across the state requires us to be good stewards of all the land, whether it's federal, state, or local assets. We just need to be careful that we don't set ourselves up to lose everything that we've invested in by not having the resources to be able to maintain them on our own. It's like that teenager that is dependent on their parents for room and board and college tuition, and all of a sudden they're on their own and they have to support themselves. I just want to remember that there's going to be a day, as there always has been cyclical days in the past, where we're going to have to be responsible for ourselves. And at some point then, we need to make a better case to the feds that they have an asset that needs to be appropriately funded. So my hat is off to you for you and your colleagues, your mayor and council, responding to the public's interest and desire to have those assets. It's what makes this state so unique, and we're very fortunate for that. I just want us all to remember that at some point the economy is going to change, and we need to be able to maintain these activities as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, State Land Commissioner Atkins. Very, very well said, editorial or not. Thank you very much. So, any other questions on Camp Verde's proposal for the Grief Hill Trailhead?
Mr. Chair,
Hearing
Jeff
none,
Buchanan.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess it's more of a comment than a question, and I understand Commissioner Atkins' points. And, you know, I've watched funding for the Forest Service as an example over the years, and it's going to be cyclical. And, you know, some years it's going to be a bad fire year, and they're not going to have enough money in their firefighting budget, and they're going to have to take money from other funds. And this is an example of something that may not be funded in the future just because of, you know, God has got a sense of humor, and so does Mother Nature, and there's no telling what's going to happen from year to year. But as I step back and I look at our purpose, and, you know, we're here to try to help the people of Arizona. We're here to, you know, you reviewed the mission statement at the beginning. We're here to help conserve our resources, but also provide access to people of Arizona. And it doesn't limit it to state lands. I understand that. And, you know, I think I'd have a different philosophical perspective if we were trying to approve a project on a piece of land. I'll use an example like a military reservation where access to that land is restricted, but access to the Forest Service land is not restricted, you know. And I mean, obviously if it's in a wilderness area, it might be restricted for some things, but for me, from my perspective, this is about providing recreational opportunities to the state citizens. And, you know, I hope that maintenance in the future will be fully funded by the federal government. But if not, in the meantime, we can help people out. And so I understand the concerns, but I don't think our mission statement is restricted to state-owned properties. So anyway, just wanted to say that.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from board members? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Camp Verde's proposal? Hello, did I lose you?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, I move to approve funding for the 2021 motorized grant applications as follows. The Town of Camp Verde Grief Hill Trailhead in the amount of $220,600.
Thank you, Board Member Buchanan. Is there a second?
This is Debbie Johnson, second.
Thank you, Board Member Johnson. It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote to approve.
Dale Larson.
Aye.
John Sefton.
Aye.
Lisa Atkins.
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you very much, board members. And I think the conversation that we just had is also a very good topic that we can wrestle with at an appropriate retreat where we can talk about shared funding and long-term maintenance and management, as well as the backlog of maintenance and management on properties, governmental properties or public land properties. So both board members, Atkins and Buchanan, really appreciate that, because these are long-term stewardship responsibilities that we do need to not only take into consideration but make plans for strategically. And I'm sure Bob and his staff feel exactly the same way. So let's go to item number 7, discussion and consideration of action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the submitted 2021 supplemental grant application. Matt Eberhardt, you're back up on board with Mojave County.
Mr. Chair, members, the Mojave County is requesting $29,031 to purchase a side-by-side for off-highway vehicle law enforcement patrol. There's been, as many of you know, a huge increase in recreation, including off-highway vehicle use. Specifically related to this project, the Wallapai Mountain area has seen a significant spike in increase. This vehicle will allow the county to better patrol the area. They are required, like all of our law enforcement recipients, to report for 2 years on what the vehicle is used for, including citations and patrol reports. Issues that the area is currently seeing are trespassing, speeding, littering, and cross-country travel. Several of these projects have been awarded to various law enforcement agencies, and this project was recommended to fully fund by staff, OFAG, and AORC. And I believe we have Jordan Cummins on the phone to answer any questions related to the project.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jordan, for being on the call. Any questions from board members?
Mr. Chair, Terry Palmberg here. I have a question. How many vehicles do they currently have for this purpose?
Hi, this is Jordan. Right now, we have one Ranger vehicle, but it is a very large F-250 truck because it also has to have a plow and stuff on it. So he is not able to get back to where he needs to at the moment.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jordan. Other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve Mojave County's proposal?
Mr. Chair, Terry Palmberg, I move to approve funding for the 2021 motorized grant application as follows. Mojave County law enforcement equipment in the amount of $29,031.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
This is Debbie Johnson. I second.
Thank you, Board Member Johnson. Motion has been made and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, a roll call vote.
Dale Larson.
Aye.
John Sefton.
Yes.
Lisa Atkins.
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, I'm sorry, go ahead. Was there
I
a
just said
comment?
thank you.
Oh, okay.
This
Thank
is Jordan.
you,
I
Jordan.
just said thank you.
Appreciate it. I understand, you know, when you're sitting in a room and you can't see faces, it's a little bit hard. But to all of the grant applicants that were on the line today, thank you for your commitment and your responsibility on representing your respective organizations to make all of these happen. As I mentioned earlier in the mission, we cannot exist without the partnerships and the collaboration and the good work and stewardship that all of you represent. So thank you, stay in tune, and certainly as board members, we all hope to be able to visit with you in person and be able to see the outcomes of all these various projects much sooner than later. So thank you again. Let's go on now to item number 8. This is an information item. It's to report on the FY 2021 awarded non-motorized trail maintenance, safety, environmental education, and LWCF fund projects. So, Mickey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. It has been a very busy year for grant staff for awarding grants in FY21. Keeping in mind this was a pandemic year, it has been very trying for us to try to get all this information out, but we certainly have done quite a bit of outreach in the past year. Staff has held 6 workshops with 186 people attending, all virtual. The map that's in your packet, it shows the red are the trail projects and the blue are the LWSF projects that were funded in FY21. The next slide shows you the recreational trails program, non-motorized and safety and education project. The first column shows the award amount, second column the match, and the third column shows the total that has been awarded in non-motorized and safety and education projects. These projects include 6 ADA projects, as the one in the slide shows, 3 new trail constructions. This is a project on the Arizona Trail Association. 9 trail maintenance and rehabilitation projects. Again, this is an ATA project that's in the slide. The next table shows the motorized project, including both off-highway vehicle and recreational trails funded projects. These include 3 law enforcement and education positions, 3 law enforcement equipment projects, volunteer trail maintenance training, maintenance of existing trails, and then the final slide, the list of projects shows the Land and Water Conservation Fund projects funded in FY21. Keep in mind, some of these were awarded by the board in 2020, but due to the pandemic and the inability to do tribal consultation, these was submitted in FY21. Of these projects, there were 4 new parks, one in Chandler, one in Pinal County, Peralta Regional Park, the Camp Verde Sports Complex, and the Yuma County Foothills Park. There are also 4 new playground projects, 2 splash pads, 1 statewide planning project, 1 trail project, and 11 park improvement projects. So the final slide shows the total funding that has been awarded in FY21, which equals $22,067,221. This will be matched with $17,688,067, which is just a total just under $40 million. There will be 11.3 miles of new trail constructed, 125 miles of trails rehabilitated, 17 new applicants, 58 total projects, 92 weeks of AmeriCorps work, and staff and volunteer hours as matched at 5,500 hours. And also I'll calculated how many hours I've driven in FY21 to do these outreach and visits, and it was 8,392 miles that I drove in FY21 for these projects. With the continued support of the Great American Outdoor Act, increased funding in the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership Program, proposal to revisit the Recreational Trails Program funding formula, which has not been updated since 2009, the continued popularity of OHV recreation, and possible state funding available, we anticipate fiscal year 2020 will be another busy year for our grant program. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this.
Thank you, Mickey. You and your staff have been extremely busy. Are there any comments from board members regarding this incredible achievement of funding support for our trails?
Mr. Chair, Terry Palmer. Mickey, I have a question. When do you determine or set goals for determining what percentage of the total project has been completed and if they're on track? I mean, I know your workload's got to be incredible with this, but I'm just curious.
Mr. Chair, Member Palmer, we have, when they submit these projects, they have milestones that they submit when they're going to have phases of these projects done, and staff reviews these status reports on a quarterly basis to ensure that these projects are being done on time and as scheduled.
Quarterly, very good, thank you.
Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is Bob Rochide. I'd like to add something real quick, if that's okay.
Sure, Bob.
Okay, I think this is tremendous. The $23 million that Mickey referenced, our entire budget is about, appropriated budget is about $26 million. So to put that in perspective, that we're granting almost the same amount as that we receive for operations, I think is incredible. But it wasn't just because we've got a dedicated team that's sitting here under Mickey's leadership. We do. But these guys, you know, a couple years ago, they saw process issues with granting all over the board. These guys sat down within their work unit and also their partners and listened. OHV is a great example. Land and Water Conservation Fund, we're kind of dictated by the feds a little bit, but they sat down and they looked and streamlined this process. One of those is that you guys are seeing grants as they are approved via SCORP. That it's not just once a year or twice a year. As soon as those get approved through the respective committee or council, they immediately come right to you for your approval, and that helps get that money out the door. Mickey talks about the miles that he puts on doing workshops. It's tremendous, and I think that is another key aspect. The outreach, the workshops, the constant communication that he and his folks have with these recipients or potential grant applicants to help them do it right the first time, and if they have questions and get those solved. Again, the dedication that these guys have, I mean, to get $23 million out with basically a handful of people is amazing. But we don't want their heads to get too big, because if our budget passes, they're going to get about another $14 million they need to get out the door through Heritage and also State Lake Improvement Fund, General Fund appropriations. So these guys really deserve the kudos, Chair and members. They have really worked their tails off, and they took the initiative to find ways to get this money out the door and on the ground as best as they can, and I think it shows. I still go back to that number that we've granted, but then you think about the match that goes into that, but then you also think about what that means as future economic impact that that's going to have on communities and businesses and on and on. It's really a remarkable number, and these guys truly deserve kudos for what they do and to keep up the great work. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Director Rochide. We echo all of that, and certainly a concern that I've expressed to Bob and his staff, and certainly for the board. The Outdoor Recreation Legacy Project money hasn't even come out yet, and these are going to be hundreds of millions of dollars throughout the country that are going to be mandated to states like Arizona. And again, the responsibility will fall on your agency, Bob and Mickey, to get this money not just out the door, but into the communication hands of our municipalities and nonprofits that would be eligible for it. And then on top of that, as you mentioned, the Heritage Funds, fingers crossed, that those are going to be made available as well. So my concern is the capacity of staff to be able to do this and to be able to do it effectively and not be able to have enough staff people to be able to do this. So my concern will be, certainly as a board, that we need to support Bob and his staff to make sure that they aren't so overwhelmed that they aren't able to do the good work that's coming through with all these funds. So keep that in mind, and Bob, let us know what we need to do to prevail upon the budgetary powers to be, to make sure you have appropriate staff people qualified as well to be able to make sure these dollars can get out the door effectively.
Yep, absolutely, Chair. That's a great point. The ability, there's a breaking point of available resources and staff to go. We're working real closely with Mickey and his team, And if there are needs, we're ready to mobilize whatever resources we need to make this happen and to get this money out the door. So we're in constant communication with Mickey and his team. And if there's needs, we'll move those needs. This is absolutely critical that we do it quickly, but we do it right. Mickey's already mentioned that he, in a staff meeting, that they're already ready to roll pretty much with Heritage Fund. So it's not necessarily dusting off the old, but because the law has changed when we were getting Heritage Fund over a decade ago, but they're already mobilizing and they're already ready. But we will keep an eye on that, absolutely, because these guys can only work so many weekends, and they certainly don't want to cut off their OHV trips around the state as well. So,
thank you, Bob, and thank you, Mickey. Any other comments from board members on item number 8? All right, let's go on to item number 9, BLM Emergency and Mitigation Grant Update. Presenter Matt Eberhardt.
Hello again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Matt Eberhardt, the State OHV Coordinator for Arizona State Parks and Trails. As Director Broscheid mentioned, we have tried to streamline the process in which off-highway vehicle grants are distributed. They used to be given out twice a year, and there was only one competitive cycle for grants. As part of that revamp of the program, we've established 5 different grant options that are available to the recreating public, one of which is the emergency and mitigation funding. Back in 2017, the Arizona State Parks Board voted to allow our Grants and Trails team to distribute funds from the Off-Highway Vehicle Recreation Fund for both signage, which is up to $10,000, as well as emergency and mitigation funding, which is up to $100,000 per project. So long as we do like I'm doing now in providing updates as those projects come along. In this instance, there was an emergency and mitigation project submitted by the Bureau of Land Management for dust and trespassing issues related to some trails just south of Rock Springs Cafe along I-17. I'm sure everybody knows it, the good old pie place. But the road south of Rock Springs Cafe is a very heavily used area for off-highway vehicle use and other types of recreation. In April, our team met with the Bureau of Land Management and ADOT to review the access area and trespassing issues that have been taking place. While we visited, ADOT provided insight regarding the increased number of calls that they're receiving for dust along the highway, primarily on the weekends, Friday through Monday. But basically, this project is going to provide fencing to prevent trespass issues on BLM property, as well as significant dust mitigation along the frontage road, as well as the trails that are most near to the highway. A contractor has been selected, and the project is expected to be completed next month. The project is going to be $86,731 with a project match of $2,720. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Matt. Now, this is an information item, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Comments or questions from board members? So, Matt, when you meet, do you meet in the restaurant and they give you pie?
I didn't know that was an option.
Just want to know. Right. Thank you very, very much. Matt, there's a wonderful short hiking trail right behind the restaurant that goes through the area too. I don't remember the name of it, but that's an extremely popular recreational trail, correct?
Yes. It's very heavily used in the area. Cars fill that whole roadway. There's also an off-highway vehicle rental company there as well, so the use is significant across all fronts. Maybe not so much now with the hotter weather, but September through probably April. It's very heavily used for all recreation types.
Right. No, it is. Driving by it, that parking lot's just always packed. All right. Thank you very much, Matt. Let's go on to item number 10, presentation on the Coalition for Recreational Trails Annual Achievement Awards. And we have the Jeff Schmidt coming up.
That is correct, Chairman Larson.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Larson, board members. The Coalition for Recreational Trails is an alliance of national and regional trail-related organizations representing both motorized and non-motorized uses, whose purpose is to build awareness and understanding of the Recreational Trails program. The Coalition is currently accepting nominations for its 2021 Annual Achievement Awards, recognizing outstanding trail projects funded with recreational trails funding. Winners will be selected from projects nominated by public agencies, trail administrators, and project sponsors. Arizona State Parks Grants and Trails staff intends to nominate at least one project from each category, and we've begun identifying projects and compiling the required nomination information, which must be submitted prior to June 30th, 2021. Winners will be notified no later than August 15th and will be recognized during an awards ceremony scheduled to be held in September in Washington, D.C. And if it would please the board, I would be more than happy to come back and provide another update if and when our projects are selected. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that any board members have.
Thank you, Jeff. Board member questions or comments? Just one that comes to my mind, Jeff. I assume that the announcement for these annual awards are on the agency's website so that people are aware of it, or how do you get the word out to all of the potential applicants for this award recognition?
Chairman Larson, this has been spread around by several trail advocacy groups, and we were actually just going to take this on ourselves and select these projects. Given our knowledge and our basically experience with these projects, we were going to go through and nominate which projects we thought were worthy of an award.
Okay. Other thoughts from board members? All right, thank you and good luck. Hopefully there's going to be a lot of applicants that we'll be able to take a look at. Appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Certainly the legislative update is one that we all look forward to, and I know between Executive Director Burscheid and State Land Commissioner Atkins and Arizona Office of Tourism Director Johnson and everybody else that are down at the legislature waiting and hoping that this thing's going to get worked out. Brittany, are you on board to tell us where we are right now?
I am, Chairman. I am on the phone. Can the board hear me?
I can.
Yep.
Great. So good morning, Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Brittany Hudson, State Parks and Trails Legislative Liaison. As you all know, the budget started moving forward a few weeks ago. The budget bills did pass both the Senate and House Appropriations Committees, as well as both the caucus hearings, but unfortunately the budget has been stalled due to further negotiations between the members and the governor's office. The governor's office is expecting for the budget to be passed before June 30th, and they believe that the members have come to an agreement. So I'm hoping that the budget passes by the end of next week. So I will definitely keep the board updated. Currently, the legislature is in a special session at this time to get funding to help with the fires that are going on in Arizona. So that means the budget is on hold for this week. So hoping the budget will come back up next week. The legislature will reconvene today to vote on those special session bills that deal directly with the fires. Parks did receive a lot of great things in this year's budget pending the passing. The director and I sent a budget information email a few weeks ago but if you would like me to quickly go through the breakdown again of what parks should receive if there are no changes, I can definitely do that. Would you like me to run through that, Chairman?
Sure, gladly, please, Brittany. We always like to hear good news.
Great. So if the budget does not change, additional funding from State Parks Revenue Fund we will receive additional funding from the State Parks Revenue Fund for several capital improvement projects. And those projects include $150,000 to construct an amphitheater at Dead Horse Ranch, $450,000 to replace the roof for the Discovery Center at Karchner Caverns, $561,000 to replace the fire suppression system and maintenance building at Red Rock State Park, and $750,000 to construct a new day-use park at Rockin' River Ranch. We have also received an additional $2,396,700 for other capital improvement projects. We have also received support to establish an Arizona State Park Store Fund to operate and maintain our gift shop. So this will be a new fund with an initial appropriation of $1 million from the State Parks Revenue Fund. We would also receive additional funding for grants, projects, and our agency that include $10 million from the general fund deposited into the Heritage Fund. And just a caveat off of that, the legislature right now is currently asking for almost $100 million from the general fund to go towards fighting the fires. So if anything does get cut from our budget, it would most likely be the Heritage Fund monies would possibly get cut in half. But I will not know that until amendments come out and until the special session is over. We will also receive $4 million into our State Lakes Improvement Fund for fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 from the general fund, $1,116,000 for wastewater system mitigation and assessments from the State Parks Revenue Fund, $528,400 for debt payoff on the Capitol cabins from our State Parks Revenue Fund, $350,200 from our State Parks Revenue Fund for the operation of Reardon Mansion State Historic Park, and $250,000 from our State Parks Revenue Fund for the Arizona Trail. And also a one-time base pay salary adjustment for our park rangers, which will be a 10% raise. So if the budget does not change, that will be what we should be receiving. If the budget does change in any way after special session, I will update the board on what we receive. So those are the updates for this week, and I will open the floor to any questions at this time.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you very much. Very, very succinct, comprehensive report. Board member comments or questions regarding the pending budget legislation goings on right now? Obviously, all of our concerns with respect to the wildfires affects everything, and fully understand and appreciate the vulnerability of the Heritage Fund as a potential source for those funds to go be used for that area. But I don't know if it was you, Bob, or someone else that mentioned about Mother Nature or whomever made that comment. We need rain. We need rain badly, and so I guess we just all need to do our own spirituality for that. Any thoughts from Brittany or questions before we move to the next item? Thank you, Brittany, very much for your comprehensive work. Keep luck, and fingers crossed it'll go through very quickly.
Thank you.
All right, future agenda items. Board members, do you have any items that you would like to identify to be considered for inclusion on future agendas?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, it's really a question of something that we addressed last time. And I'd like to know where we are in the future, and that has to do with the strategic plan. We talked about establishing a 1 or 2 day retreat or offsite or something like that, where we were going to discuss that. And I'd like to know where we are, if we've thought about when we might do so that if we're going to tie it into one of our monthly meetings, we actually can start locking that in and protecting the time and place.
Yeah.
Absolutely, board member, right on the part, and yes, that's being thought of and planned for to make sure, because this is critical, very critical for all the reasons we've discussed in this agenda. So thank you for that reminder. Any other board member suggestions for future agenda items?
Mr. Chair, Terry Palmberg, I'd like to have an update on where we stand with our vacant board member position.
Oh, good point. Thank you. All right. Anything else? All right. Let's go on to item number F. Bob, your executive director report on current events.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to jump on the mic to answer Member Buchanan. We're looking at doing a retreat, a couple-day retreat. Just this week, we met with the governor's office. We've got our 5-year strategic plan, and then we have an annual strategic plan. And it's just a 2-pager. We put it together based on input from you all, as well as our existing strategic plan. We receive feedback, and part of that feedback now is going to help inform us as we talk about our retreat. But we're looking sometime this summer to do a 2-day retreat somewhere nice, and then continue on with those discussions that we had with you last month. So we're going to continue on, so keep an lookout. Kelly's going to solicit a couple of days that you all have. Right now we're all in vacation mode, but I think after vacation mode and those types of things, we'll know what our budget is, et cetera, and we'll start informing that. So keep on the lookout. We haven't forgotten about it, but getting the feedback from the governor's office this week was very, very valuable and informative. So I think it'll help us as we start talking about embarking on the next 5-year strategic plan. So good question. We haven't forgotten about you. The second is, the other is our agency budget. Brittany talked about not what was going through his fiscal year 22, but fiscal year 21 wrap up. We're coming down to the end of the fiscal year. Kevin is going to be presenting to you, hopefully in August, where we are as regard to revenue as of this year. I think you're all going to be very, very pleased with where we are. Increased visitation even during COVID, even during lockdowns, shutdowns, 75% capacity. Where we are now, if we stay on track right now, we're going to surpass fiscal year 20's revenue, which was a record year. So we're looking at possibly 21 being another record year. But keep your fingers crossed. We still have a little ways to go, but it doesn't appear like it's going to be letting up. But we will have a presentation for you, I think, in August. It's going to go through all of the numbers, where we are with the rentals. This is for Member Palmberg, who brought up cabins, those types of things. We'll give you the full details of where that is. So anyway, just a little teaser there for you. Again, to remind you all, the Yarnell Memorial dedications on June 30th. If you haven't or don't need a ride up there, we're going to meet here, and then we'll all be shuttling up. So if you want a ride or be part of that, let us know if you haven't already, and we'll fit you in. The fourth one is talking about the discussion on the OHV that Commissioner Adkins had. Deputy Director Franquist and I and others met with the new U.S. Forest Service Regional Office leadership. They've been going through a lot of turnover, filling vacancies, and they have acting roles. Well, they actually came over from Albuquerque and met with us here at our place, and we talked a lot about what's going on, in particular OHVs, and in particular how the Forest Service can be more of a partner or be a better partner with regard to trails, OHV activities, anything, basically the outdoor recreation gamut. And they did agree. In some cases, we're a little unaware of the issues I think Commissioner Atkins brought up. But as we sort of discussed the issues here, that Forest Service is years out in planning. Even if it gets into their budget, their priorities are set for years out in advance. And but we said that doesn't really necessarily work for us. So are there ways that we can be better at getting this money out on the ground and being a lot better partner as we're talking about this. But the other end of this is, even if, like, you could take Camp Birdies, for example. Camp Verde applies for a Forest Service grant. Forest Service is on board and lets them do NEPA and then construction. The other end of that is law enforcement. And you saw Mojave County's request for side-by-side. You've seen several other county law enforcement-based agencies that are applying for this. Typically, nobody's coordinating with them. So as a result, it's a trickle-down effect of creating new trails and new roads. Now the Forest Service is just as limited in their law enforcement capacity, sometimes only one LEO on an entire forest. Now the counties are the ones that are doing the search and rescue, and they haven't been braced or ready for or been coordinated with. So long story short, I think Commissioner Adkins will be thrilled. And we talked with the TANO, but we also brought it up with the regional offices. We have to have a forum where we can sit and have these discussions. And we're calling it used to be called back in the day, it was an OHV summit. We had all the land and resource and law enforcement and NGOs and other advocates to sit around the table and talk about the state of off-highway vehicles and off-highway vehicle management within the state of Arizona, and have that discussion and have it on a regular basis where we can talk about these issues, or we can bring these up and then get to resolution of those issues. So this sort of, we did receive word with the Tano National Forest that they'd be willing to partner with state parks to put on this summit and start to have these discussions. So Commissioner Atkins and Director Johnson, you guys are one of two state agencies that are going to be key to that discussion. So stay tuned. We're probably going to look at using our OHV funds to pull this off, as well as board members. I think you all have a critical role in that process, and we need to make sure that you are on that invite. If that can be pulled off here in the future. But they are also driven by tribal management planning, and that has been put on hold for 4 years, some cases, maybe longer. It sounds like they're starting to break those loose, and they're going to start issuing decisions here. I think the Tano was going to be the first one that was going to issue their decision. Again, has an effect on us as we're talking about the state and statewide management, which is really where we look at, not just in granting, but also in approving these grants and seeking out active projects. So anyway, stay tuned for that. We're going to continue on, Commissioner Atkins, and we definitely heard you. We relayed almost identical your concerns to the Forest Service, and they seemed a little taken aback on basically they're not going to say uneducated. They just weren't aware, but they did raise those and say yes, those are valid points. So we'll hopefully that will continue on in the future. And we also did invite them and notify them that SCORP is available, and we will be reaching out to them for their input in our plan that's coming down the road. And then finally, Chairman and members, you may have seen, I think or people in my position only get to do this once, and I think in an entire career. But on June 1st, Charles Etherly is an employee of the Arizona State Parks. On June 1st, he celebrated his 50th anniversary with Arizona State Parks. And if you'll indulge me for a second, you don't get to see the cool poster that our folks put together, but this is remarkable. In any profession, that somebody will spend 50 years working really hard in a profession like this. Charles couldn't be here, but I think he may be listening, so we can really talk him up. But just a few highlights for him. He started June 1st, 1971. He by far surpasses before people were born, he was doing this. I, of course, was only 2 years old at the time. Charles has worked for every state parks director since the system was created in 1957. The first director was still there when he got there in 1971. I wish that longevity was still around today as a director, but there were 11 state parks in the system at the time when Charles started. And if you can name all 11, you win a prize. Charles worked on acquiring directly or developing the next 17 parks that were in the system. His titles have changed, but not too much, from planner, landscape architect, chief of planning, coordinator of special projects. So he was in charge of the advisory committees. He was legislative liaison. He was deputy director. He was executive consultant in the state park system. He even did some rangering out at the state parks as an intern. So he's really kind of been in all of those seats, and he still provides all of that information, you know, to me and others within the agency. He's just a credible asset. When he started, this is how small the agency was back then. There was a director, a deputy director, two they called at the time secretaries, one administrative assistant to the director, one person in the State Historic Preservation Office. Admin services, there was a chief who did contracting and 2 accountants. There was 1 person in HR. There was a chief ranger and their personnel, and then planning and development only had 2. So these are the folks that did all the master planning, the grants, RMPP leases, you know, with BLM, land acquisition, planning, development oversight, and projects and grants. So, you know, like I said early on in the beginning of my remarks, I mean, to celebrate somebody who has spent 50 years is remarkable. I think the only other has been that I've seen somebody pull off 50 years has been the military, where they have done 50 years, and that's probably even rare. So just if you can, we're going to do something here, I think in August, where we can have Charles come in. We'll have a whole bunch of real goodies, but I think this will allow the board to really thank Charles and have Charles speak, or whatever you'd like to do, Chairman and members, to just really recognize his 50 years of service that he celebrated on June 1. I know many of you know Charles personally. He is absolutely one of the best people, biggest heart I think you'll ever meet, and he still shows up to work every day. He still is sharp. He's a human catalog of information, and we're going to hopefully get to keep him around for a lot longer. So anyway, I wanted to just end my comments on that, Chairman, and in August as a future agenda item, we'll have something special for Charles Plan. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that very much. And yes, we all will look forward to be able to do something personal and emotional with Charles in August or whenever he can bring his family in. I had the pleasure of meeting Charles. One of the first people I met in the profession was back in 1983 when I first came to Arizona, and remember having an event on West Bullen Plaza, and Charles then was getting not only a planner but was producing that historical overview of all the different state parks. I mean, he's just a trivia nut on every single park when it comes to when it was created, how it was created, where it happened. In Phoenix with Papago Park, which was a state park after it was a national park on it. Charles is blessed, and he's so kind and he's so generous. So thank you for those comments, and we look forward to meeting him and his family at a future meeting. Current events, board members, do you have any announcements or summary of current events or recent experiences that any of you have had in the last month?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, two comments. One was just to put what Bob said in perspective. In the military, we actually have mandatory retirement at 30 years. It can go, if you get promoted enough and Congress approves, it can go up to 40, but really nobody over 40 years. So 50 years is truly incredible. Second, I think it was last month or maybe a month before, we talked about the origin of the name for Silly Mountain. I personally would like to know the origin of the name for Grief Hill. Having walked up many of Grief Hill in the middle of the night with a heavy rucksack, I'd like to know where that name came from.
Okay, I like that. We'll find that out. probably have to ask Charles.
That's right.
Thank you, Board Member Buchanan. Any other announcements or experiences or stories for board members? Well, again, we're all waiting to hear news on the wildfires, and Bob had mentioned the memorial celebration in Yarnell, and I know Board Member Palmberg has graciously offered to host us at her property on that day. So if you haven't already confirmed your ability to participate, please do so that Terry knows how many people to count on June 30th. This time I'd like to go to item H, call to the public. I will recognize anyone wishing to address the board on any items that may be of interest that we would look at a later date. Are there anyone from the public?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair? Mayor Laws from Wilcox?
Yes.
I'd like to deeply, I appreciate everyone there. I want you to know that from the small communities like ourselves here, a lot of us can't travel. We have community members that never travel, and helping us in our park is a tremendous appreciated by everyone here in the city, and I want to thank everyone that's worked so hard on this, and we really appreciate you. I want you to just know that from the city of Wilcox. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Believe me, you're a fabulous partner for us. Bob and your staff have spoken so highly and positively of your support and assistance with the projects in Wilcox. And again, when we have the retreat that we've been talking about, maybe Wilcox might be a great place for us to come up and see your great city and be able to see the wonderful things you're doing there. So thank you, Mayor, for taking the time to personally come down to Phoenix and be a part of this meeting. Really appreciate your support and your leadership and your stewardship with our state parks.
Thank you very much. And we definitely need our state parks. People just don't understand, like I said, that people can go to their parks and not spend any money and enjoy the day, you know, and large families gathering. Deeply appreciated. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. All right, future meeting dates are on the agenda. You're seeing that our next time to get together is August 19th in presumably the new central office from what Bob, I assume that's still on target?
Mr. Chair, it's going to be close. It's probably falling right on the week that they're scheduling us to transition, or at least there'll be moving trucks, but we could have it here for old time's sake.
Whatever works, believe me. And Board Member Buchanan, thank you so very much for being there in person and kind of holding down the fort, so to speak. I really appreciate the fact that there is a live in-person person at the meeting today. So thank you for taking that time.
Here, here.
All right, if there's nothing else then, and Nancy, I know you're there from the AG's office. Thank you again for your support. Board members, fingers crossed, get these wildfires under control as quickly as possible. And for the rest of you, hope to see you on June 30th in Yarnell. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Good job, Bill. Thanks all.